3832. Y'all already know how Jimmy J Smooth do. I just wanted to send a shout out to Serena Williams real quick. But before I do, I want to see. I'm on. Now. Okay. Let me turn this echo off because it's fucking killing me at this point. Yeah. I see we have one viewer in the chat room. Let me see. Let yourself be known, viewer. One viewer. I was trying to get at least 5 if you're. Uh, let yourself be known, guys. Uh, okay. Well, anyway, we can rock with this one viewer. I don't care. 2. Okay, that's what's up. Okay, that's how y'all do it. Okay. I wanted to send a shout out and congratulations to Serena Williams on winning her 23rd Grand Slam. She is one Grand Slam. Uh, she's one Grand Slam from of tying Miss Margaret Smith Court, who has 24 Grand Slams all time. Let me see. What is this? Okay, I'll just let them know. Anyway, she's 23rd. She has 23 Grand Slams. Margaret Smith Court has 24. She's 2 away from breaking the record and 3 away from shattering that motherfucker, quote unquote. But at any rate, Serena Williams is well, it ain't no fucking arguably. Serena Williams is the greatest tennis player of all time. Hands fucking down. She's the greatest tennis player of all time. There is no disputing her being the greatest tennis player of all time. No disputing it. I'm going to explain why. Now, I'm going through Wikipedia. Let me go to the open court era, most Grand Slams of all time. Let me see Steffi Graf, first of all. Okay. Steffi Graf, her best tennis, if you look at Steffi Graf's career, and I'm not shitting on Steffi Graf. I love Steffi Graf. She's one of my favorite tennis players of all time. But if you look at her overall career, her career pretty much declined it when she got mid-20s, early 30s pretty much. You know, she was losing to basically, for the most part, putty patrollers, for lack of a better term. Because most of her prime when she was like 16, 17 years old, you know, that 1988 year is probably by some people the best tennis year of all time, you know. So with Steffi Graf, in my personal opinion, she's probably like right behind Serena Williams. Excuse me, guys. Not only that, Steffi Graf retired at 30 years old. She ended her career in August 13, 1999. Her last championship was around June 1999. But her dominance was around 1987 to about 1993. 1987 to 1993. That's when she dominated the tennis world. Now, she did win a few championships, the U.S. Open in 1995. She did do a little something in 1996, won 3 of the 4 Grand Slams, but she wasn't dominant at the rate that Serena Williams was. And I'm going on Wikipedia, so please bear with me. I might have a few pauses in the show, but please bear with me. Her dominance, or I should say, the peak of her prime was 1987 to 1993. 1994, she won the Australian Open, but you can notice the decline was there. So, to me, Steffi is the closest to Serena Williams in terms of overall greatness. Some can argue Venus Williams is closer to her. And that's a great argument because the thing was, Venus was injured. Venus was injured most of her career. So that played a factor in her winning a number of Grand Slams. Uh, that played a major factor into that. So she was injured a big portion of her career. Her older sister was. So you can argue she's number two, but I think in overall accomplishments, Steffi Graf is the best era that I lived in outside of Venus Williams. But I mean Serena. But Serena's the greatest, hands down. Now, if you Wikipedia, I'm going to Wikipedia. Martina Navratilova. In the prime of her career, her prime was tricky because she started being good. Her first tennis title, first of all, was at 19 years old. That was the French Open in 1975. Now, the peak of her career came right around, I would say, 79, 1980. Mostly because Chris Evert took away a lot of her prime, for the most part. Because Chris Evert, Lloyd, was kicking her fucking ass for a long time. And then when she got around 23, 24, she won titles before then. But a lot of her titles she could have won more titles than what she did because she was got kicked by Chris Evert Lloyd. She got her ass kicked by Yvonne Goolagong, people like that. So she was in a big tennis era at that particular time. But Chris Evert Lloyd stopped a lot of her shit. Real shit. So with that being said, I say you look at Navratilova's career, her prime was around, again, 23, about 23 to about 28, That's pretty much the peak of her career, I should say. But as we stated, she wasn't dominating at 34 or 34, 35, 36 like Serena Williams has been doing. Which takes me to another person. Where is Chris Evert Lloyd? I'm trying to click on this. Because most of Chris Evert Lloyd's career was early 20-ish. The peak of her career was basically her 20s. Because let me see. I like to know what the fuck I'm talking about. That's my thing. And I always like to be by somewhere that I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Billie Jean King's career. You look at Billie Jean King's career, her career was a little different than most people. She won her first title at 18 years old in 1961 Wimbledon. She won her second title the next year. But her peaking career, the peak of her career came like in about that 65, 1970. Excuse me. I'm looking at the doubles. I'm sorry. The peak of her career came in 1966. I'm sorry. And it pretty much ended 72, 1973. But her career was slightly different as far as an individual, because she was a damn good doubles player. But as an individual, her career took off like 23-ish. And Billie Jean King is a A1 ass kicker. Real talk. But most of her career was stopped mostly because she was in the era of Margaret Smith Court, who was whooping ass. I mean, real shit. So let me go to Margaret Smith Court career. Because Margaret Smith Court is known as the greatest tennis player of all time. She has the most titles, so how can you argue with that? Reason why I argue with that point because Margaret Smith Court's career pretty much the peak of her career came relatively late in terms of most tennis players. The peak of her career was around 28, like Brother Corey Wolf had said. Most athletes peak at 28, 28 to 30 years old. In her case, this is true. The peak of her career was when she swept the Grand Slams in 1970, excuse me. This was the peak of her career when she was 28. I mean, she dominated, and this is known as one of the greatest tennis years, sweeping uh, 4 Grand Slams. You know, the Grand Slam of tennis, I should say. But her career declined tremendously after 1970, 71, 73. Her career was pretty much out of there. I mean, when she won those 3 Grand Slams in 1973, she was just getting killed by younger players like Chris Evert, who came in the field. Uh, you know, some of the great, Billie Jean King started getting up with her. So she, the Maureen Conleys of the field. I mean, she was getting her ass handed to her. So it pretty much her career, she wasn't dominating like Serena Williams is. Because Serena Williams won the Serena Slam not too long ago. Serena at any moment can win 3 Grand Slams, even at the career rate that she's at right now. At the time of the career the time of her career right now, she can easily win 3, 4 Grand Slams at a time. Serena Williams can dominate younger tennis players at any given moment. Why is that? Because her service game is the best. Hands down. Her service game is up there with dudes. When we talk about dudes hitting, this motherfucker is bad. This is a badass tennis player. Real shit. Man, let me go blow my nose real quick. God damn. I sounded like a goddamn British nigga up in this motherfucker. But by some tennis players say she is better right now, this time in her career, than any time she's ever been. How can you even explain that? I mean, shit. This motherfucker can pull off 6 Grand Slams, and she don't got to pull it off in the same year. I mean, this motherfucker is bad. Real talk. She's dominating motherfuckers. Margaret Smith Court wasn't dominating people at fucking 34, 35, 36 years old like Serena Williams is doing. And if you want to take it a step further, a lot of dudes are not dominating at that particular time, like Serena Williams is currently doing. So the experts, we're talking about older tennis players coming out and saying this motherfucker is the greatest. You know, several tennis players, credible tennis players are coming out saying she's playing better tennis balls than ever. You know, Lindsay Davenport has given her a prop. When you that motherfucking bad, can't nobody fuck with you. But if you look at Margaret Smith Court career, Navratilovan's career, they wasn't dominated in their 30s like Serena Williams is doing. And like her sister, injuries. She's had terrible injuries. I think it was a couple of years to where she wasn't even playing tennis at one point in time. So Just imagine if she didn't get hurt. And the same goes for her sister. I think her sister would have more Grand Slams than what she had. I think her sister would have easily had like 15, 16, 17 Grand Slams if it wasn't for injury. So she would be up there with her sister. But that goes to show you how great our black athletes are. Our black athletes is the shit. Any sport we take over, we dominate. And like it or not, whether it's fucking golf, fucking basketball, polo, whatever the fuck you want to call it, we dominate that shit. And Serena Williams is not is no exception. Serena Williams is killing these motherfucking girls. These motherfuckers are entirely too slow for this motherfucker. You have to have the perfect game to beat Serena Williams in a tennis match, or she has to be off. She has to have an off night for her to lose. This is how great she is. The only person that can beat Serena Williams is Serena Williams herself for the most part. Margaret Smith Court wasn't dominated in her mid to late 30s. Navratilova wasn't dominating in her mid to late 30s. Chris Everett Lloyd wasn't dominating in her mid to late 30s. These women decline at 28, 29, 30. These women decline. And I had a conversation with my homeboy, Corey Wolf, on Facebook. Shout out to brother Corey Wolf. My brother from another like no other. That's why I call him my brother. You know, and we were talking about how people peak, athletes peak, but tennis is a whole nother ball game. Tennis is a young person's sport. Most of the greatest accomplishments are usually accomplished around 18 to about 23 years old in tennis. And if you're not dominant by the time you get to 22, 21, 22, you're probably never going to be dominant. There are exceptions to the rule. But for the most part in tennis, tennis is a young person's sport. She's dominating a young person's sport. And she's old as fuck in terms of tennis years. She dominates the Australian Open for the most part. The Australian Open is dominated by fucking Serena Williams. That's almost like her Wimbledon. That's almost like her fucking US Open. And the thing about Serena, she plays better on grass, on hard court than she does the French Open. Now, her least dominant open is the clay court in the French Open. Reason being because she's a lot quicker on grass and hard court or turf. The most titles she's won overall is the Australian Open and Wimbledon. Then after that would be the US Open. The US Open is pretty much the Australian Open is pretty much her bread and butter. Because when people thought Serena Williams was out of there, all of a sudden that fucking Australian Open, she starts waking up in that fucking Australian Open. Real talk. Her ass started waking up in that damn Australian Open. So you can't compare. You just can't compare. You can't compare her greatness to. You can't compare her greatness to any other tennis player of all time. Because if you do your research, I'm right by Wikipedia right now. You can cross-reference all these people I've mentioned, and it does not compare. Look at hold on, who's the oldest male tennis player of all time? I want to Be curious. I'm actually curious about that. Let me go back. Most Grand Slam tennis titles. I want to buy a male. I mean, this bitch is kicking fucking ass. I mean, at any given moment, this motherfucker can pull off consecutive tennis titles at any given moment. That's her greatness. I cannot find the list of male single champions. Who's the oldest male? Man. Okay. I mean, who's the oldest man of all time to win a Grand Slam title? Curious, because I know the youngest man of all time is Michael Chang when he won the French Open in the '80s. Motherfucker does not say. Let me go to Pete Sampras. I think Pete. KB. Can't say. Well, I'm not gonna worry about it. But for the most part, guys decline in their 30s. You know, I know Jimmy Connors made the U.S. He didn't win the U.S. Open, but he made the U.S. Open semifinals in his 30s. But still, he was. You know, you can't compare. Serena Williams is a bad motherfucker, and you can't compare because Serena's the shit. And regardless of how y'all feel about Serena, on a personal level, you know, she's the greatest tennis player of all time, hands down. You know, I would love for Roger Federer to get another championship, but I don't know that shit even gonna happen. But it is what it is. But I just wanted to send another congratulations to Serena Williams, and I'm gonna end this show. Once again, this your boy Jimmy J Smooth, live and direct in full effect after 832, and y'all already know how Jimmy J Smooth do. Peace out.